and only Dawgs Show. Your hosts, Troop Brinson and Smooch Moncrief.
Queen of football.
Just two dudes talking Georgia football.
And welcome, dog fans, to the one and only Dawgs Show with Troop and Smooch. It is SEC Championship Week. We trust that you folks had a wonderful Thanksgiving and got everything you needed out of your system, but now get your game faces on.
Game face on. Here. Game face on, Brinson.
Yes, we're here to enlighten your path and lead you down that walkway to where champions walk, champions traverse. The Dawgs Show is here to take you right there. Alabama Week. Let's just call it Alabama Week.
Let's call it what it is.
These are the two teams. Georgia, in the 2 years where there were no divisions, no easy walkthroughs, with Florida having their usual seasons and, Kentucky and all those teams, Georgia has gotten through, pushed through incredible schedules, back-to-back seasons, and one big SEC to make it to another SEC championship. And we're excited. There is so much to talk about, Smooch. This may be one of our longest shows. We may break it down for you guys, but be prepared. We're going to cover a lot.
Yes, we
are super excited.
Yeah.
To finally knock Alabama Crimson Tide off and send them to fishing. Send them fishing and waiting for a bowl game somewhere, because it very could well happen this weekend as we meet again.
Yeah, they're saying that Bama, the 3-loss team's going to have a hard time getting in this year. Troop, I was listening today. I'm just searching around the Twitter sphere or the X-sphere, whatever you want to call it now, and I'm looking around, and the Georgia detractors love to say, well, Georgia's this field goal against Tennessee and this thing against Florida, this thing against Auburn from having 3 or 4 losses this year. Let me tell you something, Bulldog haters. The Georgia Bulldogs are a missed block by a freshman offensive lineman from being 12-0 right now.
Yes.
From being 12-0. That is the season. I know. Look, Kirby's ways they do not match our emotions. They do not match always what we want, but you cannot, in the end result, argue with results. We are 11-1 in the SEC title game yet again, and there is no one I would rather face than the Alabama Crimson Tide, because we have got to figure out a way to get this done at some point, Troop.
Yeah, like you said, a couple plays away, a play away against Alabama. From the argument being who's number one in the country, and between us and Ohio State, and the resume would
That's right.
definitely lead you to believe that Georgia is that team. 8 out of 10 years for Kirby Smart, Smooch.
Wow.
SEC championship game. That's incredible. 8 out of 10 years. This is the 4th championship game in a row.
That's the one that gets me. 4 in a row. 4 appearances in a row.
And so, yeah, this is something to be excited about. We had talked about it, thought about it a lot, whether this was a game we wanted to play. And I fell on that. I'm a fan. I want to see Georgia play. I love this team. I want to see Georgia play football. I don't want to sit back at home and watch A&M and Alabama play or Ole Miss play. I want to see the Dogs play.
Yeah.
I want to. Yeah, that's what we want to do. We don't want to sit at home, and so we got that opportunity with Texas beating A&M, and A&M had a schedule that you could poke a lot of holes in. It had a great season, but you could poke holes in their strength of schedule, and that's what Texas came in there. A team that Georgia has handled several times, and they just really walked away from A&M late in that game. They did.
Yeah, they exposed them. They exposed them as being a fraud. I was thinking about something today when we talk about the SEC title game. We talk about playing in the SEC. Troop, Indiana, Texas Tech, Oregon, Notre Dame, if those teams had to play in the SEC, they would have 3 or 4 losses by now every single year and wouldn't be in the conversation. Look, I'm not saying that Ohio State can't get up and beat any team in the country. I really believe they can. But you do not understand the attrition of playing in the SEC, playing a team that can beat you almost every single week. How many times does Ohio State play a team that can beat them in a season? Twice? Maybe. But in the SEC, you take a team that no one really, like Tennessee. Tennessee's almost not even thought of at this point this year. Tennessee can beat anyone, and they're barely above a mid-tier.
They got 4 losses. They got 4 losses.
They're
Vandy.
a 4-loss team, lost to Vandy. And I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee could beat Ohio State. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Not saying it's likely, I'm just saying it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
When you think about
what
the SEC means, I'll take the way we do it any day. I know that the road and the path may beat you down and have you a little ragged, where maybe you don't slip into the playoffs or as high a rank as you could be if you played somewhere else. But battle-tested. Battle-tested is the word. The winner of this game this year will be the favorite to win the national championship. I believe that either way, Georgia or Alabama.
Yeah, but in battle-tested does come with some consequences as these teams get beat up. Georgia and Alabama are both beaten up a bit, and that's just what's going to happen. That happens when you play, and then you got to play this game. You got some teams that don't have to play their conference championship game. They're not going to take the beating that even in this game. I mean, it is very, very possible after this weekend's game, Georgia's going to be missing a starter somewhere else. Right. Or Alabama been missing a starter somewhere else, because that's what kind of happens. And Kirby Smart says if you're afraid of it, then you can't even practice. If you're afraid of injury, getting hurt, you can't even practice to be ready for these games, because you're scared. You can't be scared of those type things. 11-1 Georgia, 10-2 Alabama. Both with only 1 loss in the SEC, and we're looking forward to that. We're going to get back to that.
Yeah.
We're going to deviate just a moment, because we'll say Georgia did on the college football playoff committee did say Georgia's the top SEC team in their rankings at number 3. That just came out. Georgia's number 3, and the top 1-loss team as well, just behind Ohio State and Indiana. And then I think Alabama did move up a spot to number 9. Ole Miss is number 6, and you got Texas Tech at 4, Oregon at number 5. And the biggest thing, we're not going to talk about this. This is a different show. But the big battle was Miami and Notre Dame. Notre Dame's still ahead of Miami, and there's some crazy things going on. I don't know if I agree with that, but we could make a whole segment on that. I don't think it's necessary for our fans, but you can think about what you want. But the day was also another big day in terms of news that came out, and you folks have already heard that Jared Curtis, all the smoke, there was some fire behind it. He did flip to it still is almost laughable to me, to a serious football player who would flip from Georgia to Vandy. And Vandy, has had a resurgent couple of years. When you say resurgent, that means they're coming up after being down for a while. They've always been down in terms of football. Right. They've never had a good football
they've
program.
never surged, so it's not.
They've never surged. So resurge would be, the re is not needed. So, but he did flip, and it kind of was a crazy day, because he said, I didn't release his information yet, but he already told some people. Apparently, he's told people different things all along, and I get it. He's trying to make a decision, and Georgia feels like the best choice. But then the hometown team, if Vanderbilt wasn't in Nashville, in his hometown, he's from Nashville Christian, not an issue. He's already kind of pushed away Oregon in this whole situation months ago. You feel like Vandy's not a real obstacle. But you saw what Diego Pavia did. He did it all by himself, pretty much, on the team that's devoid of a whole lot of talent. And they're going to be much less talent next year. Yeah. But Jared Curtis is going to get an opportunity to make it his own team and to play. He's got a guarantee to play quarterback every year there, and he wouldn't have that at Georgia. He'd have to earn it on the practice field, and Georgia couldn't give him that The money was very similar, Smooch, but it just feels like in terms of football, if you want to be the best football player you can be, it's an easy choice, and he didn't make that one.
Yeah, I would think so too. People have asked us, we tried to calm down the Georgia worry a few months ago or a few weeks ago, because we do love to worry, and he did go visit Vanderbilt. Well, I'll tell you this. Look, I spoke to his family. They looked me dead in the eye and said he's a Georgia Bulldog, and that is not going to change. That's all we can go with, guys. I don't know what changed, but something certainly did. The idea I got was that he was so locked into Georgia, it was actually silly for people to be concerned that he might go somewhere else. That was exactly what I got when I spoke with his family. And so to be in this situation now, best of luck to the kid. Georgia's going to be just fine, by the way, guys. But best of luck to the kid. It just seems like a very odd choice when you're talking about a career. He's at this point now 3 years from, going to the NFL. Hopefully, this seems like a very odd choice. And I'm going to tell you this, he's not Diego Pavia. He's not. Pavia, they caught lightning in a bottle.
In 6 years, he might be.
Right, in 6 years, yeah. When he's what 32? How old?
He doesn't want to stay in college that long, though. He doesn't.
Right. He's already proven that he's not really all that patient. Well, Diego's been doing it a long time, and so you don't want to sit. You don't want to develop. That's fine. Best of luck. We're going to be just fine, Georgia fans. It sucks to miss out on another one. These 5 stars that they get your hopes up, and you're like, what would this team be with a legitimate thoroughbred at this position? But here we are.
Yeah, and it's happened. It stings even more so. We watched him play. Smooch went to one of his games, and we've put a lot of stuff out on him. And that stuff's still getting hits on Twitter. I still get lots of notifications on the video we put out on Curtis this football season. But it stings because this happened recently. Even as far back a couple years ago with Arch Manning, because it was us in Texas. He had came to Georgia, and it looked like Georgia was leading for a while. He went to Texas. Raiola, you saw he moved to Georgia.
Right.
And I think we dodged a bullet with him.
Yeah.
But and then he at the very end chose Nebraska. And now he might transfer from Nebraska.
Looking like it.
And it just feels so weird that those 3, and then now Curtis at the very last moment. If you want to go to Vandy, go to Vandy. Go. Don't string us along. Don't commit to Georgia twice. If the commitment means anything, then make it mean something. And so it feels bad. That part feels like bad taste.
So to recap, he committed to Georgia, decommitted to Georgia, recommitted to Georgia. At that point, you're now hurting Georgia's ability to recruit. At that point, you're hurting their ability to stock the cupboard because they think they've already got. That what would you do if you had a 5-star quarterback going? Are you going to try and get another 5-star quarterback to come in right next to him? No. Once you got your guy coming in, you sort of you take a deep breath. And so it's not a, I don't want to say it's a red flag, but it's not a sign of kind of it's a sign of selfishness. Well, I'll just say that look. You want to go to Vandy? Go to Vandy. It's right there. They're right down the road from your house. Just go there. But the stringing along, just a couple of weeks ago, I'm a dog through and through. Nothing's going to change that on his own Twitter. Look, whatever. But the stringing along thing, that's really going to sting when we play Vanderbilt next season.
If we do play them, they do come to Athens next year.
Yeah.
And if he gets what he wants, he's going to be starting with a team that's going to lose 40-plus players to eligibility. That's how upper class they are. They're going to lose. They're going to have to really depend on some portal additions. And buddy, that's not the way to go. They're a complete rebuild, and you're going to be a true freshman. I do have a question for you, Smooch, and I just mentioned this in terms of Arch Manning and then Dylan Raiola, then now Jared Curtis. Compare that to Stetson Bennett, Carson Beck, Gunnar Stockton, and even Puglisi. What does all that mean? What's the difference in those top players for Georgia?
Well, if you take the three that have not come to Georgia, Gunnar's better than all three right now.
And they're all high five-star rated.
They're all high 5 stars. Real happy with Gunnar. Look, we kept Carson Beck. I really think, we had him here, 4 years? I think you could make the argument Carson Beck is better than Arch Manning. I don't think that's really a stretch. And Stetson is the only quarterback in the history of college football playoffs to win back-to-back national championships. So, yeah, the sexy picks might not be the ones at quarterback getting it done, but Georgia gets it done at the quarterback position at the same time. The hype around Arch has completely cooled off. Which I think cooled off.
He's playing better. He's playing his best football.
I think he's a really good quarterback. But when you're talking about the best college football player that's ever existed, that's just too much.
Too much.
With Dylan Raiola, I'm thinking we dodged a major bullet.
He did.
I think we probably, Fields leaving was probably the best thing that ever happened for the Georgia program.
He would have been sitting on the bench and causing a problem. Yeah.
Right.
Both those guys, but.
Right. And how many national championships those guys got?
None. And the thing is that the players that Georgia had were willing to put in time and were program players. They were willing to put in several years and wait their turn. And that's I think Georgia's willing to adapt and adjust to like a player like Curtis and say, hey, you want to come in here and compete your first year? Let's do it. You're still going to have to compete. Mm-hmm. We're not Vandy. We can't just say, okay, this is your job.
It's your team.
Because Georgia offered him the NIL offer for Curtis was just south of $1 million, not even to play.
Right.
Just to be a backup for Gunnar Stockton next year. That's a pretty good gig. But you can't guarantee these guys. You have to earn it on the field, and that's the standard that Georgia sets. And Vandy, if he's good as he's supposed to be, he can still make it. But, there are also some risks, Mooch, to come in and playing for a team who can't protect you, can't give you the weapons you need, and you're playing in the SEC. And some of these teams are saying, okay, Pavia's done. I'm done with Vandy, taking shots at us, and they're gonna punish Vandy for that for the past couple years. So there is, in your first couple years, if you are on a team that is not preparing you the right way and leading you in any level of sports you play. Mm-hmm. If they bring you up too soon, there's damage. For a high level athlete, they don't want to put you in a situation where you're going to get psychologically damaged by it.
Right.
Because you'll come out the other side a different player than you would have if they were prepared for you.
Yeah, what makes an elite quarterback, a Hall of Fame quarterback, what makes them what they are their instincts. Well, your instincts are involuntary, right? That's the way you respond to stimuli. And you can rewire that part of the brain by putting yourself in bad situations before you have the maturity and ability level to handle the mental processing of it to when you can actually develop incorrect instincts. And that's the reason you have all those levels of minor league baseball, for instance, right?
Yes.
It's about bringing these guys up step by step so as to keep their wiring, their instincts pointed in the right direction. And we've seen kids that lit it up in minor league baseball that go up to the majors at 19 and then flame out. That type of thing does happen. And so you're going to the hardest conference in all of football with a team that is completely rebuilding. Best of luck. I told you this. I believe I don't know if I said it on the show. I know I said this on our thread when we were talking. Curtis in high school is a dual threat quarterback. I didn't see where he was a dual threat quarterback at the SEC level. He's mobile enough, but he's closer in mobility to Carson Beck than he is to Gunnar Stockton or Stetson Bennett. And so he's going to need his legs. Pavia is gifted on his feet, and that's helped him. And everything's going to go down a step next year. And so, yeah, I just see Curtis getting very, very stretched. He's going to have to rely on that arm talent. But unpopular opinion right now, Puglisi has better arm talent than Curtis right now. Now, give him a few years, we'll see. But that's the state of things right now. But anyway, back to Curtis. I just think that I want it to work out for him. We love seeing guys do well and rise, and we would love for Vanderbilt to remain an actual threat in the SEC instead of doing what we think they're probably going to do next year, and that is head back the other direction.
It would sting even worse if he was going to Alabama or Tennessee or Texas. Go on to Vandy, have your fun. You won't, you're not going to threaten Georgia from Vandy, so we're okay with that. My last point on this is that I just told you that he was going to collect over almost $1 million just to sit behind Gunnar Stockton next year. So his second, maybe this was a point of his comparison to his second season at Georgia would have been battling against a 4-year player in Ryan Puglisi, who is as talented as anybody Georgia's had in that quarterback room. Ryan Puglisi would be a 4-year player battling against Curtis at that point. And Montgomery as well. Montgomery would be a 3-year player. He looks good too. So there's no guarantees. And Georgia's Kirby Smart's not going to guarantee anything to a player in their living room or in a boardroom. You got to earn it on the field. And I think Curtis is a special player. I've loved watching his film this year, and I'd love to have him, but we don't. So we'll move on. We got bigger fish to fry because guess what?
Preach.
Georgia's actually playing in the SEC championship this week. They've already played this team, obviously, Smooch, September 27th. The Dog Show was there for a night game in Athens against the Crimson Tide. We did lose 24-21. The question is, as we really bring it home and what we're looking at this weekend at 4 o'clock in the Mercedes-Benz, correct, Smooch?
That's right,
Headed
buddy.
back right there. Is why. Why did we lose the game in September against Alabama? And I got some points, and I know you got some ideas on why we lost that game. I heard them. I was sitting right by you during the game.
You heard everybody around us heard them, buddy.
He was very vocal in what he didn't agree with in that game, and I was just shell shocked myself. I wasn't saying much.
Yeah,
but first of all, credit to Alabama staff. They were very prepared for Georgia, and their offensive plan was perfect. And Ty Simpson made his announcement in terms of I'm legit, and I'm that kind of guy. I'm an NFL quarterback. He was absolutely spectacular in that game against Georgia. Their offense was spectacular, even though they only scored 24 points, all in the first half. They had 77 plays compared to Georgia's 53 plays and just dominated the game. We'll look at some stats. But what do you see in that game, Smooch, that made them the better team that first time around?
Two things, one on offense, one on defense. Georgia was not in sync at all on the offensive line. And on defense, there was confusion on every play in the secondary. And, you can – there was also not a lot of pressure on the quarterback at that time, but that feels like an insignificant problem. When you look – we were watching. We're standing there watching. You don't see all 11 players like you do live, and we're watching players turn around and put their hands up like they don't know where they're supposed to be right before the ball is snapped, and then Ty Simpson was picking them apart. So confusion in the secondary, lack of aggression in the secondary, and then some chemistry problems on the offensive line.
Yeah, statistically, the number that stood out, and it was mostly in the first half because the crowd was lit, and we were just begging our defense to get them off the field, and they couldn't. 13 and 19 third downs that's unprecedented. That's a huge number. And Simpson, and if he got pressure, and Georgia blitzed a good amount of time in that first half. When they got pressure, he was just throwing dots. He was just some crazy plays. Even one play where somebody had a hold of his elbow. He pulled away and then threw a laser in the traffic right on the money for a big first down. And so the statistic was definitely skewed towards Alabama. Not huge. Georgia kind of got their things together in the second half. Total yards, of course, Alabama had right about 400, Georgia with 360. And looking at the passing yards is what they did so well. Passing, they had, 280 yards passing to Georgia's 130.
Yeah.
And they couldn't run the ball. And that's very unusual for a team not to be able to run the ball. Georgia had 227 yards rushing to just over 115 yards, 117 yards for Alabama. You usually win when you have those kind of stats.
Right.
But it was that third down conversion and then a couple of plays that didn't go Georgia's way that changed that. And like you mentioned, Georgia's defense was so young and inexperienced. Young inexperience. When you they really did. That was the first game they threw DeMello Jones and Ellis Robinson out there and said, figure it out.
Right into the fire. Yep.
And even Dalen Everett, a lot of cushion because they were trying to prevent some big plays. So a lot of cushion, a lot of area for Ty Simpson to work, and he was good at it. He did a good job. Their offensive line protected well enough. And you saw even the pass rush. That's a totally different pass rush you're seeing right now than when you saw in that first matchup.
Yeah, you've got – when you throw youth out there like we've done, you're saying, okay, learn to fly. You know, it's just like the gold eagle that pushes their eaglets out of the nest, and they're like, you fly or you die. Right? That's basically what happened. They learn to fly before they hit the ground.
Or like Smooch's dad, who probably threw him in a pond and said, swim.
Swim, boy. Hurry up, I'm hungry. Yeah, that was pretty much it. But the progression, and this is something we'll get into a little bit more as we talk about this game, the progression that Georgia's made on defense and in the pass rush specifically on the back end as well has been remarkable. This isn't the same defense that played Alabama in September. It's not even similar in any ways. I wouldn't recognize the two. What you and I watched and then what we watched against Tech, what we watched against Texas, that's not the same boys. It's the same boys, but it's not.
How many games? That was game 4?
Game 4.
And this is game 13?
Yeah.
9 games difference there. Yeah.
Yeah. 9 games difference, and they're playing as though they had a full year. You know, you see that big jump between sophomore and junior year. We saw a similar jump with these kids this year, just over that 8-week, 6-game stretch. That the defense is they know they're playing aggressive. That was, if you remember, the thing I was ranting about in the stands during the game, it wasn't the fact that we were losing, it was the lack of aggression on defense. And the lack of aggression was because people didn't know their assignments. They didn't know what to do, and they weren't playing fast and with passion and energy and all that. They looked tentative, and drives me insane. But what we've seen in these last few weeks is an aggressive, fast defense. So I'm looking forward to seeing that match up with an Alabama offense that may have taken a couple of steps back.
Yeah, it's hard to duplicate what they did against us.
Right.
It's hard. You've seen Quinn Johnson and Gabe Harris both get exponentially better. You've seen Elijah Griffin in the middle start to become the man that he is, and just those things. And Kristen Miller's done what he's done all year, and he's just he's a beast in the middle as well. But you're starting to see those guys, those players, come into their own because the experience. And when you play these kind of games all year long, you could take a third of this season and it could be like a highlight reel for most programs. Right. But Georgia has played like three different portions of a season that has been spectacular, and so many games where, like I said, highlight stuff. And we're gonna at some point we'll look back at this season and enjoy it because there's been many times Georgia could lose, and they've shown you what they're made of. And these players have grown through that and learned to keep chopping and learn to strain to be better. In that game that ended up being so close, 24-21, there was a couple of critical mistakes as well. And you can't make those critical mistakes. And then one of them was in the first drive where KJ Bolden missed a sure interception.
Dropped an interception. Yeah.
And they just went on to drive the ball for like 8 minutes, it felt like, and score a touchdown anyway. So that could have changed the whole trajectory of that game. But the other critical plays were scoring opportunities that Georgia just left on the field. And you can't leave those in a game like that against a team that you're trying to kick the demons out. You got to get them out. And you can't, they're not just going to leave on their own. So you have to make those plays. Taylor has to make that touchdown catch.
Has to.
The offensive line has to make that
block.
Very simple block for Cash Jones to walk into the end zone. Georgia, 2 touchdowns right there. There was independent of themselves. Both of them should have been made very easily, and that's 14 points on for Georgia right there. You have to make those plays. You make those plays like Georgia has made this year in games since then against Ole Miss and against Tennessee and against Texas. Georgia made those plays, and they won those games. And it was those games are up for grabs. Sometimes late, Georgia made more plays. So you should feel like Georgia has progressed from that loss where they didn't make the plays that were available to them. Hopefully this week, as we move on, Smooch, and talk about this weekend's game. This is the game that Georgia doesn't really need it. I don't know how much it will affect Georgia if they lose it. They want it. They're hungry for it because it's Alabama. If it was any other team, they may be like, okay, well, we're still going to be a top 6 seed. We're going to probably play a home game.
Right.
We're protected in this game. 1 loss throughout this incredible season. We only got 1 loss. We're protected from a loss in this extra game, basically. But it's Alabama, and so these are the two headstones of the SEC.
Yes.
And so, looking at this game, what are your worries? What would there's obviously some worries. It's Alabama. What the worries we need to talk about? What are the things that we think that could get us beat in this game? And one thing is just the health of this team, Smooch.
You nailed it. That's it. It's one healthy player, and that is Drew Bobo. I give Bobo the credit for the turnaround on this offensive line.
Yes.
The communications, he has held it together. He's asserted himself as a leader. He calls out the protections. He identifies the blitz. He gets everybody where they went. And did you see what happened against Tech when Bobo left the game? We started seeing missed blocks again. We started seeing missed assignments again. That is more than anything. It's not, and by the way, we did see some snaps where Gunner had to jump up to catch the ball, and that threw the timing of the whole playoff. We saw that too. But more than that is the leadership and the ability to put people in the right position. That is what weighs heaviest in my mind right now.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. One of the missing components from last year. So our starting center last year was Jared Wilson. Mm-hmm. He went on to the NFL. He's not playing center. He's a great athlete for offensive line. I think he's playing guard.
Yeah.
And he's doing really well because that's where he's better suited.
Right.
Now, Drew Bobo is not anywhere near the athlete that Jared Wilson was, but he fits what this team needs in terms of communication. But it's not just that, because he knows what his job is. And the issues I saw with when Tolliver came in, I will say that he's had plenty of snaps. That Georgia in practice separates. They have like 4 different squads in practice, and they all take the same amount of snaps. So he's had the same amount of snaps in practice that Drew Bobo has. Yep. But I see him on last weekend. I saw him on some plays where it's more run blocking, where he had to move and he had to pull, and he had to figure out who to block and where to block him and where to pin, and that's where he was missing. And so some of those run plays didn't hit,
right?
Because he didn't really know what he was looking at. He was looking for somebody to hit,
but he was thinking instead of playing. Yeah.
And so he doesn't have as much game experience as that. He's not quite as talented as Drew Bobo, but he's not that far off. He's just a red shirt freshman. Mm-hmm. But that's where I saw it more than anything. I don't think I feel comfortable that they'll figure out the play calls and that thing, and it may slow some things down. It's making the actual plays and blocking the right person. If you're running right at him on a pass protection, he's gonna block you. Mm-hmm. He'll get in your way. He'll block. He'll do a good job. You start running these stunts, and you don't know how you gotta help out your right guard to one guy, then switch and take somebody who's running a stunt. That's where they're going to try to get him and confuse him. And so that gives me a little pause.
Yeah.
And because before then, this offensive line was clicking, and that was what we've said. I've told people last few months the difference in this offense and why you're seeing Mike Bobo get the accolades he's getting is because of Drew Bobo and the rest of this offensive line who is playing spectacular and making the job so much easier for the running backs and for your quarterback. And so that's going to be something I worry about until it's not something I worry about.
100%.
Another worry, Smooch, is that Gunner was bad against Tech. I don't know exactly why. I'm not going to pin it on the offensive line injury. I will say that the offensive line struggled as a whole, though. Mm-hmm. I saw lots of mistakes on the offensive line throughout that game, and he just and even with that, he just didn't have a great game. His reads were off. Sometimes he tried to run it a little bit too often, and he just had one of his poor games just in decision making.
Yeah, I will tell you, I've heard that said by many people. I don't worry about it at all. I think we've seen what Gunner can do when Gunner needs to do it, and in the bigger games. That's, the one thing he and Stetson have in common. They don't have a lot in common, by the way, but they play their best in the biggest games. And so I'm actually not concerned with it at all. I think I've gone back and rewatched the Tech game a few times. We didn't run a lot of what I would call the bread and butter Gunner Stockton plays. We did run some, but you just get to a point where do you grind this game out and win it? Or do you get deep in the bag, so to speak, when your offensive line is struggling, risk your quarterback getting blindsided and hurt? And I think that factored into the way that game was sort of managed. But, Georgia led that game. They took care of business. If you look at the stat line, yeah, Gunner had an underwhelming performance, but it honestly, that of all the things that should be legitimate concerns, probably concerns me the least. I think we've seen what Gunner is, and I fully expect him to have a Gunner performance.
And we took some shots in that game. He took some shots to Noah Thomas, to Dylan Bell, and he, where he wanted those guys to try to make a play. And if those plays they make those plays sometimes, then you're looking at a totally different game, and Georgia's pulling away, and you're thinking a little differently. But sometimes it doesn't. Right. And I like that he's taking his shots. He's going to have to continue to take that shot. But I'm like you. That was not a very good game at all, to say the least, for Gunner. But we've seen the whole story of Gunner this year, and so we don't anticipate that being an issue.
Right.
And the other thing that I worry about is just that they have that A on their helmets. It's the Alabama. It's the Demons. That we tried to get the Demons out, Smooch, in September. It didn't. They didn't go, and so those demons are still there. In terms of, I think, more so from a fan's perspective, but maybe not. Maybe it's infiltrated everywhere. Because can you say that it's just chance that we keep? Because we're very similarly talented. These teams are very talented. They're very similar, and so you think it'd be an equal give and take in terms of win losses, and it just hasn't been that way. That Bama. Whatever. It's not a mystique anymore. I don't feel the mystique, but that demon is still there because we haven't expelled it yet.
That's my biggest concern, period, right there with everything. Look, to say there's not a mental block in Athens when it comes to beating Alabama, that's silly. It's the empirical evidence is right there. What is it? What's it? Is it 1-7, 1-8? What? I don't even. I stopped counting. It's not pleasant. I stopped counting at 1-5, whatever it is. Look, the evidence is there. There is a block with that A with a little thing on top of it. It affects the Georgia Bulldogs. It affects the coaches. It affects the players. Can they? It only takes. How many World Series did the Boston Red Sox have to win to end the curse? One. Now nobody talks about the curse of Bambino anymore, right? And that's all it takes. You get out there and lay a whooping in the SEC title game on Bama, and no one's worried about it. But for right now, it is, again, I live in North Alabama. I was talking with my guys here just day before yesterday, and I said, I would pick Georgia to win by 3 scores in this game because of the trajectory of the two teams. If it were not for that A on the side of their helmet, I think that A gives them 13 points just by having the A. And so can they rise up and overcome? We're going to find out Saturday.
There are some upward trends in this game that are good for Georgia. First of all, that defense really has grown up. It is not the same team. 9 games difference between when we played them the first time and then this game. And you've seen how the defensive backfield, and you've seen, we talk about DeMello Jones a lot because he is a physical player. He sets the edge, and he is not afraid of contact and making tackles. But Ellis Robinson has been equally impressive in terms of playing receivers and knowing where the ball is and going up and making some interceptions. Those are huge confidence builders for him, because when we first played them, those guys were their heads were spinning.
Yeah,
and it's not the same defense from their standpoint as well as the defensive line standpoint. Much better defensively for Georgia coming into this ball game.
They're trending upwards, Troop, and I believe I said this earlier. Alabama reached a peak right around the Georgia time, and they really haven't climbed back up to their best. Georgia has ascended this season, and Bama has been in a slight inconsistent decline that really saw it rocked with the Oklahoma loss, Troop.
Yeah, that's a game they just played horrible in that game. Oklahoma's got a good defense, but you just didn't seem to see the same execution. And Ty Simpson has been that guy for most of the season. They have put so much on him to make their offense go, and he's met the challenge for the most part. But you've seen in the last few games where he's got some chinks in his armor. He's not performed quite the same way.
Well, teams are not respecting the run anymore. And so you're seeing Ty Simpson throw a few more interceptions. Yeah,
and they got some injuries too, Smooch, in terms of Bama's injuries. They're beat up too. They got a center who's got a bad leg, bad wheel. He's not playing anywhere near. I think he got part of a partial cast on his leg, on his foot, so he's not anywhere near as effective as he would be. And then, of course, Jam Miller was on crutches at the end of the game. He's a great pass blocker, great playmaker, and they're going to have to turn to Anthony Hill. And I don't know how long, DeBoer has shown you he's not going to sit and keep running it. He's not really persistent in terms of running the ball.
Right. And
you think hopefully with a Georgia team that's more seasoned at this point, that they will take advantage of a one-dimensional team. And as long as you don't go 13 for 18 or 19 on third downs, right, she had a much better chance to get them off the field, get our offense back on the field. And Gunner has shown you, if you're worried about what Gunner did against Tech in Charlotte, nobody cares about that. He's shown you what he's all about against Texas, against Tennessee, against Ole Miss, against Mississippi State. He's shown you what he's all about. He's played games where we talked about preseason that you would find out what Gunner was all about.
Right.
You find out what quarterbacks are all about in 4 quarters, in games where you got to make plays and there is no room for error. He's shown you that he's that guy.
Yeah.
And so that's an upward trend for Georgia. I'm not going to ignore at all. And Bama's just not peaking. It feels like Georgia has been in an upward trajectory the past few games.
Yes.
If you can just dispatch that Tech game for whatever it was, Georgia has been a team that's been playing better and better. And hopefully the Drew Bobo injury won't sidetrack all that. We really hope it doesn't, because this team was coming together offensively. They were playing some of the best football in the country against some of the best teams in the country. And so we feel confident that we'll see some aspect of that trend play out against Alabama, because Georgia's due, Smooch, at some point. Georgia's due to play a perfect game, and Georgia's due against them to play an A+ game, and they're due to play a C game, and we're going to beat them by 2 scores.
Yeah, how many more times do we have to see this thing where Bama comes in and plays lights out and Georgia lays an egg in the first half and has to dig themselves out? At some point, Georgia's just got to get some breaks. It's the law of averages at this point, right? At some point, George, one of those passes that gets tipped and falls harmlessly to the ground gets picked off. A quarterback, rather than getting sacked, gets a strip. There's a strip fumble, and it's picked up and taken in for a touchdown. Sooner or later, those have got to start to fall Georgia's way because they really haven't in the last few meetings. And so you just expect at some point the Demons Out game to be a game where all the numbers equalize for just 4 quarters. That's all we need.
Yeah, that's it. Prediction time. Let's talk about that. We have our own opinions on this game. As the week goes along, we tend to start to favor Georgia, feel better and better about Georgia's chances, and I don't think it's any different because these two teams, Smooch, are very evenly matched. They are. And I think a lot of it comes down to who plays better, who coaches better. I still feel better about Georgia's coaching staff.
I do too.
But at some point, it's got to manifest on the field, and I feel like as an evenly matched team, I predict that Georgia's coaching staff is finally going to find the right ingredients in this game to outcoach what Alabama's doing.
Yeah, I feel that way too. I feel, first of all, if you're not going to pick your team in the SEC title game, you don't need to be picking games. So
we lost one game this year.
I'm picking Georgia. I'll tell you. Here's how I'll give you mine. I see it just like this. I see it being a physical slog. I think Kirby wants to slow this game down. I think he's going to, just as you said, really work on exposing a one-dimensional team. I think it's a low-scoring game. I think it is 21-13 Georgia.
Ooh, wow. I feel like that this is the opportunity going back to coaching where we saw this against Texas, where Georgia utilized a lot of tendency breakers because there's so much tendency that teams are really focusing on, and when you're looking at film and trying to come up with a game plan, there's so much tendency. And both teams were going to use that against the other team because they know what you want to do and say, okay, we're going to have a couple of plays here, 2 or 3 plays where we're going to really hurt you because you are sure of what you're seeing, and we're going to add something to that. It's going to be a big explosive play, maybe for a touchdown. That's where coaching comes in. And so those tendency breakers, you saw Georgia just kill Texas, who is a really good staff as well. And a team that was playing pretty well at that point, and they used that against them. And you could just look at Sarkisian on the sideline, just like he just had nothing. He knew he was out. He was outdone.
Right.
So this is another opportunity for Kirby Smart and the coaching staff that he has to say, we're better than you, and here's why.
Right.
And this is Georgia football. I lean towards that, and also say, Smooch, that in this game, Gunner's just got to be a little bit better than Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson was one of the best quarterbacks, just like Jalen Milroe was last year when we played.
Right. Heisman
Those
favorite.
quarterbacks were the best we've seen them all year against Georgia, and Georgia is a good team with a good defense, but they were able to have those games against Georgia. Was it coincidence, or was it something Georgia's doing or something they're reading? I don't know. But I feel like Georgia's got a much better opportunity to be balanced, which means it's harder for the defenses to sell out for one particular area. Georgia should have Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowens both healthy for this game, so they can be balanced and hurt you either way. I just hope Georgia is willing to come in there and set some stuff up to take some big shots. We all think of aggressiveness in terms of passing. Maybe that's not always true. But Kirby has shown you sometimes, especially against Texas, last 2 years, he's shown you when to be aggressive and how to be aggressive, and sometimes it manifests different ways than just passing. But I really think Gunner has to be better than Ty Simpson this game. Everything's going to be on Ty Simpson. Smooch. They put so much on him. He's going to have to be spectacular to beat Georgia for the second time this year.
Right.
I don't think Gunner will be tonight. He's that kind of cat. I'm like, okay, he's had a full slate of games to show what he's about and to gain confidence. I feel like, hopefully, as a Georgia fan, that Gunner is just that kind of dude. He's gonna take this, and this is gonna be one of those other games that goes on his highlight reel. As this is just the SEC championship. There's a whole lot more on the plate after this, but this is a big game in terms of I think the Georgia program establishing themselves as, Alabama's not the team that's going to consistently take what we want, and Gunner Stockton, who is coming to his own. I think he's going to have a great game.
I agree. And I think that a couple of things. Number one, I don't think Gunner can have 2 bad games in a row. If you really call the Tech game a bad game, I don't really get into all the statistical stuff. But if I don't think Gunner can have 2 bad games in a row, and I don't think that Ty Simpson can have 2 Heisman-level games against Georgia in the same season. I don't think either one of those can happen twice in a row. That's where I come down.
Switch is coming down on just let's just use common sense. This can't happen again.
Law of averages, right, people?
Georgia is due. So you think the Demons are out after this game? You think Georgia disposes of the Demons? Is that what you're saying?
I do. And I thought that last time, too. We had the same segment.
We did. We made a whole cocktail based off of it.
We made a whole cocktail based on it. There's an adage in football that, it's really hard to beat the same team twice in the same season. That's true. I just think that right now, had these teams not played earlier in the season, I would think Georgia is clearly the better team. When we went into the game in September, we didn't know. We really hadn't seen. I just think Georgia is clearly the best team in the country right now, headed for a showdown with Ohio State. That's the feeling I get. That might not always happen. But yeah, I just don't think that this can't last forever, right? And so I'm saying Demons out. By 7 o'clock Saturday night, we'll know.
When the coaching staff is that talented and that much attention to detail, and the rosters are so talented, like I said, you got to be some give and take, and this is Georgia's time. My score prediction, 30-24 Bulldogs. I almost went with 27-24. That's been a score that's
they've done that a lot, haven't they?
Repeated several times. Yeah. 30-24. Georgia's going to win this game. It's not in Athens. It's in Atlanta. They are very comfortable there, and I hope they just play error-free football and do a good job of capitalizing on all the opportunities, which they didn't do as well in the first matchup. 30-24 is my score. We will 100% have a rapid reaction Saturday night as the Ohio State-Indiana game is about to kick off. We'll talk about it, win, lose, or draw. And I think it's going to be a celebratory kind of a night. That's what I'm looking forward to, Smooch.
Sounds good, man. I got a victory cigar I bought in September, and I'm waiting to light it, buddy.
If you're not going to smoke them for championship Saturdays, and when you're going to smoke them, we're going to smoke some cigars Saturday night and have a good time. All right. Anything you want to close with? It's been a couple of weeks since we got back on the air. Yeah. It's been we've been all over the state of Georgia.
Yeah,
but especially Smooch, taking care of some obligations with the family.
Oh yeah, buddy. I'll tell you, this season has been the most frustrating and the most rewarding I can remember. When Georgia pulled it off in 2021, we were just kind of along for the ride. We're like, wow, these guys can really play. This could really happen. And then it did. In 2022, Georgia just went out and took care of business all season. Aside from a game with Ohio State that was a thriller, this season has had so many growing pains and bumps in the road and the frustration of immaturity when you're in terms of experience, the frustration of inexperience, I should say, which makes the game frustrating to watch. And the fact that the Georgia Bulldogs have navigated that minefield and not lost 3 or 4 games like a Tennessee did this year, not lost those games, but come out victorious while taking the missteps, getting the bumps and bruises of youth, and now stand in this position. I just think they see it through Sunday, Troop. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs. All right, we'll talk to you again Saturday night after Georgia's big victory over the Alabama Crimson Tide. For Smooch Moncrief, this is Troop Princeton saying so long. We'll see you soon.
This is the Dog Show with Troop and Smooch.
Dog show. It's the dog show. It's the dog show. It's the dog show.